They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But what if it's not revenge you're after, but justice? What if the most powerful weapon isn't a raised voice or a clenched fist, but a folder full of receipts? The moment he laughed at my proposal in that boardroom, telling everyone I'd never prove my technical competence, something shifted inside me. Not broken, awakened. Some people destroy you with a single sentence. Others teach you, with that same sentence, exactly how to destroy them. They never see it coming when your revenge isn't loud, when it's methodical, documented, patient, when it's written in the language they understand least, irrefutable truth. The worst part wasn't the humiliation. It was the silence that followed. I can still see their faces. 22 colleagues, eyes down, pens scratching paper, no one willing to look at me as Brad's words hung in the air. Sarah, you'll never prove that this works because you simply don't have the technical competence for it. 3 years at TechFlow. 3 years of exceeding targets, solving problems others couldn't crack, building systems that made the company millions. All dismissed in a single sentence, delivered with that smirk I'd grown to despise. I remember the weight of my laptop as I packed it up, the sound of my chair scraping back, the burn behind my eyes that I refused to let become tears. Not there, not in front of them. In the elevator, alone, I finally exhaled. My hands were shaking. Not from sadness, from something deeper, something harder. Rage, maybe, or determination. Sometimes they feel the same. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony overlooking downtown Austin. The city lights blurred as I replayed every interaction with Brad since he'd joined TechFlow as my new manager 6 months ago. The casual dismissal of my ideas in meetings, the raised eyebrows when I spoke Spanish on calls with our Latin American clients, the way he'd interrupt me mid-sentence with, "Let me simplify." What Sarah is trying to say, it wasn't just me. I'd seen how he treated Lucia from marketing, how he'd taken credit for David's code optimization, but I was his favorite target. The question was why. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. ¿Cómo estuvo tu presentación, mija? I typed back, "I'll call you tomorrow. Long day." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made a list. Every slight, every dismissal, every stolen idea. And somewhere around 3 a.m., something shifted inside me. The humiliation hardened into purpose. Brad Chambers thought I couldn't prove my worth? Fine. I'd prove something else entirely. Monday morning, 6:42 a.m. The TechFlow building was nearly empty when I badged in. Perfect. I'd spent the weekend planning. Brad had made a critical mistake in underestimating me. 2, actually. First, he thought I was emotional, not strategic. Second, he'd never bothered to learn that before TechFlow, I'd worked in digital forensics for 2 years. My desk was exactly as I'd left it Friday. I plugged in my external drive and began. Every email Brad had sent me, every meeting invitation, every Slack message, every shared document with his fingerprints on it. "Good morning, Sarah. You're in early." Jennifer from HR stood by my desk, coffee in hand. Always the first one in, always looking slightly surprised to see anyone else. "Big project deadline," I lied smoothly. "Trying to get ahead of it." She nodded, moved on. Jennifer was fair, but cautious. I'd need more. Then accusations to bring her on board. I returned to my archaeological dig through 6 months of digital history. By 10 a.m., Brad strolled in, nodding vaguely in my direction before disappearing into his office. Like clockwork, my phone pinged with his first microaggression of the day. "Need the Miller analysis by noon. Assuming you can handle that after Friday's performance." I felt nothing as I read it. No anger, no hurt, just confirmation. "Will do," I replied. On my second monitor, hidden, from the open floor plan, I added the message to my growing collection. Documented, time-stamped, cataloged. That night, I stayed until the cleaning crew arrived. As Louisa vacuumed around my desk, I found what I was looking for. An email from Brad to Director Watkins from 2 months ago. Q3 strategy. James. I've been working on an approach to streamline our customer acquisition flow. Early models suggest we could reduce churn by 27% by implementing these changes. Attached was my preliminary analysis, word for word. The analysis I'd spent weeks developing and had shared with Brad in confidence before it was ready for wider distribution. "You're working too hard, Sarah," Luisa said in Spanish, emptying my trash. I smiled at her. Sometimes hard work pays off in unexpected ways. I took a screenshot, filed it away, added it to the timeline. Brad's first mistake was stealing from me. His second was leaving a trail. Day 3 of my investigation, and patterns were emerging. Brad hadn't just stolen my ideas. He'd built his entire reputation at TechFlow on the work of others. Primarily women. Primarily minorities. I started connecting with colleagues, casual coffee breaks, lunches where I carefully steered conversations toward past projects. "Remember that client retention strategy from April? Wasn't that originally your concept, Priya?" Priya's eyes darted around the break room before she leaned in. "How did you know?" I pitched it to Brad in a one-on-one, and next. He's presenting it to the executive team. Did you ever say anything?" She stirred her tea, eyes down. "What's the point? It's his word against mine. No proof. But I had proof. For all of us." That afternoon, Brad stopped by my desk. "Sarah, about your system proposal." I looked up, face neutral. "I've been thinking," he continued. "Maybe there's something there after all. If you send me your full documentation, I can present the best parts to James." "The best parts?" Meaning the parts he could claim credit for. "Sure thing," I replied. "I'll send it over." "Good. This is how you grow, Sarah. Learn from feedback." His condescension was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. As he walked away, Miguel from engineering caught my eye from across the room. He'd heard everything. He gave me a small nod of solidarity. That night, I sent Brad a decoy document, impressive looking but missing all key components that made my system viable. I kept the real documentation secured in my personal cloud storage, along with a growing folder labeled Insurance Policy. At home, I poured a glass of wine and called my sister. "Mariana, remember that lawyer friend of yours? The one who specializes in workplace discrimination? Anna? Yeah, she's still at Johnson & Barclay. Why? What's happening?" "Nothing yet," I said, looking at my laptop screen filled with evidence. "But I might need her expertise soon." "Sarah, what are you planning?" I took a sip of wine. Justice. 2 weeks into. My documentation project and my folder had grown to over 200 files. It wasn't just about me anymore. I'd quietly connected with 5 other colleagues who had similar experiences with Brad. None had my evidence-gathering instincts, but all had stories. Lucia from marketing. He told me my English wasn't professional enough for client presentations. David from engineering. He removed my name from the patent application after I did all the development work. Priya from analytics. He changed. My performance review after I refused to stay late to help him prepare for his executive presentation. Each conversation ended the same way. "But there's nothing we can do about it." They were wrong. On Wednesday, Brad called me into his office. "Close the door," he said, not looking up from his screen. The blinds were partially closed. I left the door open an inch. Texas is a one-party consent state for recordings. My phone was already capturing everything. "I reviewed your proposal," he said, finally looking at me. "It's incomplete, missing critical components." "Is it?" I kept my voice neutral. "Don't play dumb, Sarah. This isn't what you presented in the meeting. That was just an overview. I'm still developing the full solution." He leaned forward. "Listen, you're not going to win this. The executive team already thinks your idea is flawed. My words carry weight there. You should focus on the projects I assign you instead of these pet projects." I nodded slowly. "So, you've already discussed my system with the executive team?" A flash of annoyance crossed his face. "Of course. That's my job." "Interesting. And what exactly did you tell them was flawed about it?" "The implementation approach, obviously. Your understanding of the technical architecture is surface level at best." I stood up. "Thank you for the feedback. I'll keep that in mind." "Sarah," he called as I reached the door, "this is for your own good. Know your limitations." I turned back, meeting. His eyes directly for the first time. "I do know them, Brad. Better than you think." Back at my desk, I stopped the recording and saved it. Then I sent an email to Jennifer in HR. Subject: Meeting request. Confidential. Jennifer, I'd like to schedule a private meeting to discuss a sensitive workplace issue. Would you have time this week? Thank you. Sarah Martinez. 20 minutes later, her response arrived. Sarah, I can meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. in the small conference room on 4.
Urgent?
Is this? Jennifer Walsh. I looked across the office at Brad, now loudly taking credit for Miguel's database optimization in a team huddle. Not urgent, I replied, but important, thank you. That night, I organized everything into a presentation: evidence, timeline, pattern, impact. By 1 a.m., I had 47 pages of documented proof. The small conference room on the 4th floor had no windows, just a table, 6 chairs, and silence thick enough to cut. Jennifer Walsh sat across from me, reading. Glasses perched on her nose, methodically going through my evidence. Page by page, screenshot by screenshot, email by email. I'd seen Jennifer handle dozens of issues over my 3 years at TechFlow, always composed, always professional. But I'd never seen her like this, jaw tightening, brow furrowing deeper with each page. How long have you been gathering this? She finally asked, voice quiet. 2 weeks, intensively. But some of these files date back 6 months. And these recordings? Texas is a one-party consent state. Everything was captured legally. She nodded, returning to the documents. Another 10 minutes passed. These other employees, Lucia, David, Priya, Miguel, Zoe, they've corroborated these incidents? Yes, though none of them documented things the way I did. They didn't think anyone would believe them without proof. Jennifer removed her glasses, pinched the bridge of her nose. They weren't wrong, unfortunately. She stood up, walked to the whiteboard, then turned to face me. For a moment, she looked conflicted, as if weighing professional protocol against personal conviction. Sarah, I need to tell you something, and this stays in this room for now. You're not the first person to raise concerns about Brad. I waited. 2 others filed informal complaints. But without documentation like this, she gestured to my folder. Without this level of evidence, it became a he said, she said situation. And he's very convincing. So nothing happened? We issued a verbal warning after the second complaint. But I'll be honest, it's difficult to take action against someone with his connections to upper management without ironclad proof. She tapped my folder. This, however, this changes everything. I felt a weight lifting slightly. What happens now? Now I take this to legal. This level of documented pattern behavior, discrimination, idea theft, creating a hostile work environment, it's serious. The company has liability exposure here. And Brad? Jennifer's professional mask slipped for just a second. Let me worry about Brad. As I gathered my documents, she placed a hand on my arm. Sarah, can I ask, why now? Some of these incidents go back months. I thought about my presentation, the silent room, his smirking face. Everyone has a breaking point, Jennifer. He finally found mine. She nodded slowly. Leave this with me. Don't discuss it with anyone. And Sarah? Yes? Back up all of this somewhere safe. People like Brad, they don't go down without a fight. 3 days of silence. 3 days of seeing Brad strut around the office while I pretended nothing had changed. I kept my head down, worked on routine tasks, avoided direct interaction. My evidence was with legal now. The machinery was in motion. On Friday morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Conference room A, 11 a.m. Don't acknowledge this message. At 10:58, I took the long way to the conference room, cutting through marketing to avoid passing. Brad's office. Inside conference room A, 5 people waited. Jennifer, 2 men in suits I recognized as TechFlow's legal counsel, James Watkins, the department director, and a woman I didn't know. Sarah, thank you for joining us, Jennifer said formally. This is Catherine Delgado from our parent company's ethics committee. Catherine nodded at me. Ms. Martinez, Jennifer gestured to a chair. We've reviewed your documentation and conducted our preliminary investigation. Today, we're meeting with Mr. Chambers at 11:15. Before that happens, we wanted to brief you on the process. One of the lawyers, Andrew something, slid a document across the table. This is a confidentiality agreement covering these proceedings. Nothing discussed leaves this room. I read it carefully before signing. Years of dealing with people like Brad had taught me never to sign anything without reading every word. "What exactly is happening at 11:15? I asked. James Watkins spoke for the first time. "We're terminating Brad's employment, effective immediately." I hadn't expected it to move so quickly. "On what grounds?" "Multiple violations of company policy, ethical breaches, and behavior creating a hostile work environment," Catherine said. "Your documentation was thorough," the second lawyer added. "We'll be offering him a separation agreement contingent on a non-disclosure clause. Given the evidence, we believe he'll take it rather than risk litigation." "And if he doesn't?" Catherine's expression hardened slightly. "That would be unwise for him. The parent company takes these matters very seriously, especially with the evidence you provided." Jennifer checked her watch. "He'll be here in 5 minutes. Sarah, you can either leave now or wait in my office until this is concluded." I stood. "I'll wait in your office. I'd rather not run into him in the hallway." As I left, James called after me. "Sarah, when this is over, I'd like to discuss your system proposal. The real version, not whatever redacted copy Brad had." I nodded, oddly calm. "I'd like that." In Jennifer's office, I sat quietly, watching the minutes tick by on her wall clock. At 11:32, I heard raised voices from conference room A. Brad, obviously. At 11:47, Jennifer's office door opened. She looked tired, but satisfied. "It's done," she said simply. "He's being escorted to clear his desk now. Security will walk him out." How did he take it? About as expected. Denied everything, then got angry, then threatened legal action, then got very quiet when Andrew showed him the recordings. She sat behind her desk. "The company would like to offer you a settlement as well for the discrimination you experienced. I don't want money. It's standard procedure, Sarah, and between us, you deserve it." She slid a document across to me. "Take the weekend to review it. And one more thing." "Yes?" "James mentioned your system proposal. He'd like you to present it to the executive team next Friday. The full version." For the first time in weeks, I felt something like satisfaction. "I'll be ready." News travels fast in corporate America. By Monday morning, Brad's office was empty, his nameplate removed, his presence erased. No official announcement was made, but everyone knew something significant had happened. Lucia caught me in the break room. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Did they actually fire him?" I nodded slightly. "How? Why now?" "I can't discuss it," I said. "But let's just say everything leaves a trail." Throughout the day, others found reasons to pass by my desk. A nod from David, a small smile from Priya. Even James stopped by, something he rarely did for anyone below director level. "Sarah, about your presentation on Friday. The executive team is very interested in your system optimization proposal. How confident are you in the projected savings?" "Very. I've run the simulations multiple times. Conservative estimate is 17% cost reduction in year 1, scaling to 24% by year 3. And you can implement this yourself? Lead the team?" The question surprised me. "Yes. I designed it to work with our existing architecture." He nodded. "Good. Because part of what I'm proposing to the executive team is that you head up the implementation. As technical director. Technical director. Brad's position. 2 levels above my current role." "That's quite a jump," I said carefully. "It is. But your work speaks for itself. And frankly, we need to correct some misattributions that happened under previous leadership." In that moment, I understood what was happening. TechFlow was worried about liability. Promoting me was their insurance policy against a discrimination lawsuit. But principles aside, I knew I could do the job, better than Brad ever had. "I appreciate the opportunity," I said. "I'd like to be considered on my merits." James nodded, looking slightly relieved. "Of course. That's exactly why we're considering you. Your presentation Friday will be part of that assessment." After he left, I opened my laptop and pulled up my system proposal. The real one, not the decoy I'd sent Brad. It was good, I knew that. But if this was my shot, I'd make it perfect. That evening I stayed late, refining, testing, preparing. The office gradually emptied. Only the cleaning crew remained. Louisa stopped by my desk again. "Still working hard, Sarah?" I smiled at her. Always. But tonight it feels different. I heard about Mr. Chambers, she said, quietly. The security guards talk. What did they say? That he left angry, shouting, said someone set him up. I kept my expression neutral. People say a lot of things when they're upset. She nodded knowingly. People also get what they deserve eventually. My mother always said, La verdad siempre sale a la luz. The truth always comes to light. Your mother is a wise woman, I said. As I packed up to leave, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. We need to talk. This isn't over. Brad. I stared at the message for a long moment, then took a screenshot and forwarded it to Jennifer in legal. FYI, just received this. Jennifer's response was immediate. Do not engage. We'll handle it. Thank you for reporting this promptly. I blocked the number and drove home, feeling strangely calm. Brad was right about one thing. This wasn't over yet. The week passed in a blur of preparation, meetings, and quiet changes. I finalized my presentation for Friday. James introduced me to the executive team as the system architecture specialist who would be briefing them, a new level of visibility. On Wednesday, Jennifer called me to her office. 2 updates, she said when I arrived. First, Brad has accepted the separation agreement. He's bound by the NDA now, which means he can't discuss the circumstances of his departure or contact TechFlow employees, including me, especially you. Which brings me to the second update. We've documented his text to you as a violation of the AKA separation terms. Our legal team has issued him a cease and desist. Will that stop him? Jennifer sighed. It should. Men like Brad typically respond to legal consequences, even when they ignore moral ones. But as a precaution, security has his photo. He won't be allowed in the building. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and lingering tension. Sarah, Jennifer added as I stood to leave, the company is taking this very seriously. Not just because of potential liability, but because what happened to you and the others was wrong. I want you to know that. Thank you. And unofficially, the executives are impressed with how you've handled this. Professional, documented. No drama. No drama. Just meticulous evidence collection and strategic patience. I appreciate that. But honestly, I just want to get back to doing good work. You will. Starting with your presentation Friday. Friday morning arrived with a strange sense of déjà vu. The same conference room. Many of the same faces that had witnessed my humiliation 3 weeks earlier. But everything else was different. This time, I stood at the head of the table. This time, James introduced me with respect. This time, when I opened my presentation, people leaned forward, engaged. The TechFlow sales system currently operates on architecture designed 5 years ago, I began. Before our customer base tripled, before mobile became our primary platform, before real-time analytics became standard. Slide by slide, I walked them through my proposal, the technical debt we'd accumulated, the bottlenecks in the current system, the elegant solution I'd designed that would save millions while improving performance. When I finished, the CFO leaned forward. Your projected savings, 21.7% in year 1, that seems optimistic. I was ready for this. The simulation data is in Appendix C. We ran it against last year's complete transaction set. 21.7% is actually the midpoint of our confidence interval. He looked impressed. I'll review it. But if these numbers hold up, they will, I said, with quiet confidence. The meeting ran 30 minutes over its scheduled time with questions, all of which I answered. No interruptions, no dismissals, just professional respect. As people filed out, James remained behind. That, he said when we were alone, was exactly what we needed. The executive team is on board. We'll make the official announcement about your promotion to technical director on Monday. I let his words sink in. Thank you for the opportunity. You earned it, though I have to ask, why didn't this proposal come to light sooner? I met his gaze directly. It did, but not everyone in leadership was interested in sharing credit. Understanding dawned on his face. Well, that leadership has been restructured. As I packed up my materials, James added, by the way, the implementation budget has been approved. You can build your team starting next week. I already knew who I wanted. Priya's analytics skills, Miguel's database expertise, Lucia's user experience insights, the talented people Brad had marginalized, whose work he'd claimed as his own. It was time they received the recognition they deserved, too. 3 months into leading the system implementation, and everything had changed. My team, handpicked from the people whose work had been previously overlooked, was thriving. Our project was ahead of schedule and under budget. The preliminary results showed our efficiency gains would exceed even my optimistic projections. The professional landscape at TechFlow had shifted too. Jennifer had instituted new reporting procedures for workplace issues. James had become a visible ally for diversity and technical leadership. Catherine from the Ethics Committee now conducted quarterly reviews of team dynamics and recognition practices. On a personal level, I'd settled into my director role with growing confidence. The initial whispers of diversity promotion had faded as my team delivered results that spoke for themselves. But corporate life is never without complications. On a rainy Tuesday in March, Jennifer appeared at my office door. "Do you have a minute?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Of course." She closed the door. "I wanted to give you a heads up. Brad Chambers has taken a position at DataSphere. DataSphere, our biggest competitor." "I see." I kept my voice neutral. "Is that a problem for us legally?" "Not directly. His NDA prevents him from sharing proprietary information, but it doesn't prevent him from working in the industry." "And you're telling me because—" Jennifer hesitated. "Because he's been asking questions about you, about your system, through mutual connections." A familiar tension crept up my spine. "What kind of questions? Who really designed it? Whether you had the technical background for it? Whether TechFlow was covering something up by promoting you?" I leaned back in my chair. "And what are people telling him?" "Nothing helpful to his narrative. Your work speaks for itself, Sarah. But I thought you should know." "Thank you. I appreciate the warning." After Jennifer left, I sat quietly, thinking. I had anticipated this possibility. Brad's type rarely accepted defeat gracefully. His ego wouldn't allow it. That evening, I called my sister. "Mariana, remember that lawyer friend of yours?" "Anna?" "Yes. Why?" "I think it's time I had a consultation." 2 days later, I sat in Anna Patel's downtown office. Professional, discreet, with a view of Ladybird Lake that spoke of success. She reviewed the documents I brought, copies of my evidence file, the settlement agreement, Jennifer's report on Brad's recent inquiries. "He's getting dangerously close to violating his NDA," Anna said finally. "But he's being careful, asking questions rather than making direct accusations." "What's my exposure here?" Anna considered this. "Professionally, limited. You have documentation backing everything. Your system is proving successful. The company is behind you." She paused. "Personally, however, this kind of continued animus can be draining, distracting. What do you recommend?" 2 tracks. First, continue documenting every instance where he attempts to undermine you through industry channels. Second, she smiled slightly, a preemptive measure. "What kind of measure?" "A letter from me to him and DataSphere's legal department, reminding them of his NDA obligations and the consequences of violation, mentioning that we're aware of his recent inquiries." "Will that stop him?" "It will make DataSphere very nervous about their new hire. Companies don't like legal exposure, and it sends him a clear message. You're still watching, you still have the evidence, and you're not afraid to use it." I considered this approach. Not aggressive, but unmistakably firm. "Do it," I decided. "And Anna, make sure the letter specifically mentions that any attempt to discredit my technical capabilities would be viewed as continuing the pattern of discrimination documented in his termination." Anna's smile widened. "I like how you think, Ms. Martinez." 1 week later, Brad's LinkedIn profile quietly updated. He was no longer with DataSphere. No announcement, no explanation. Just a digital footprint of another hasty exit. Jennifer called me that afternoon. "Just heard from a contact at DataSphere. Thought you'd want to know. Brad Chambers is no longer with them." That was quick. Apparently, they received some concerning information about his previous employment history. Jennifer's tone was carefully neutral, but I detected a hint of satisfaction. "Anyway, I thought you'd sleep better knowing he's not in a position to compete directly with your project. I appreciate the update. After we hung up, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the thumb drive containing my evidence file. I hadn't needed it this time. Anna's letter had been enough, but I kept it anyway, just in case. Some lessons once learned are never forgotten. 6 months after Brad's departure, TechFlow held its annual Innovation Awards ceremony, a black tie event at the Fairmont downtown, with every executive and director in attendance. I hadn't given it much thought. My focus had been on the system implementation, which had officially launched 2 weeks earlier. The results were already exceeding expectations: 23% cost reduction, improved user experience, and data processing speeds 40% faster than our previous architecture. The team had celebrated with champagne in the office. That felt like recognition enough. So when James stopped by my office that morning, I assumed it was about the final implementation report. "Sarah, you're attending tonight, correct? The awards?" "Yes, the directors are all expected to be there." "Good. Wear something nice." He smiled cryptically and left before I could ask questions. That evening, I chose a simple black dress, elegant but understated. As I entered this hotel ballroom, I was struck by the transformation. Crystal chandeliers, white-clothed tables, a stage with TechFlow's logo illuminated behind a podium. Priya waved me over to a table where my team was already seated. "You look amazing," she said. "Ready for your big moment?" "What moment?" "I'm just here to support whoever wins." Miguel and Lucia exchanged glances. "Sure," Miguel said, suppressing a smile. "Just here to support." The ceremony began with the usual corporate fanfare. The CEO's speech about innovation being the lifeblood of technology, awards for marketing campaigns, customer service initiatives, engineering breakthroughs. I applauded politely, mentally reviewing our project metrics for tomorrow's executive summary. "And now," the CEO announced, "our final and most prestigious award of the evening, the TechFlow Innovation of the Year, presented to the individual or team whose work has most significantly impacted our company's success." A video began playing on the board. Giant screens, charts showing cost savings, user interface improvements, performance metrics. My system. "This year's award goes to a project that revolutionized our core sales infrastructure," the CEO continued. "A system that not only saved millions in operational costs, but positioned TechFlow as an industry leader in real-time transaction processing." The room erupted in applause as my name appeared on the screen. "Sarah Martinez, please join me on stage to accept the Innovation of the Year award." In a daze, I made my way to the stage. The crystal trophy was heavier than it looked. Sarah's vision and technical leadership transformed an outdated system into a competitive advantage, the CEO said. "Her work exemplifies the innovation we strive for at TechFlow." I stepped to the microphone, suddenly aware of hundreds of eyes on me. "Thank you," I began, voice steadier than I felt. "This recognition belongs to my entire team. Priya, Miguel, Lucia, David, Zoe, please stand." They rose from their table, beaming. "Innovation isn't just about technology," I continued. "It's about creating an environment where good ideas can flourish, where talent is recognized, regardless of where it comes from." I paused, thinking of the journey that had brought me here. 6 months ago, someone told me I would never prove my technical competence, that my ideas wouldn't work, that I should know my limitations. A ripple of uncomfortable recognition moved through the audience. Everyone knew who I meant, though his name remained unspoken. But limitations aren't something imposed on us by others. They're boundaries we choose to accept or reject. I held up the trophy. This isn't just recognition for a successful project. It's validation of something I've always believed, that when we judge ideas on their merits, not their source, innovation thrives. The applause as I left the stage was thunderous. Later, at the after-party, James approached me with a glass of champagne. "Hell of a speech," he said, clinking his glass against mine. "Subtle but unmistakable." I shrugged. "I believe in giving credit where it's due." Speaking of credit, the board was impressed with the final numbers. They've approved Phase 2 funding, double your original budget. That's excellent news. And one more thing. He lowered his voice. Catherine from the Ethics Committee mentioned that your case has become something of a case study for the parent company. They're implementing new policies based on how you documented everything. Really? That's unexpected. Don't look so surprised. What you did rippled beyond just removing one bad manager. It's changing how the whole company operates. As he moved on to mingle with others, I found myself standing alone for a moment, trophy in one hand, champagne in the other. The irony wasn't lost on me. Brad had tried to diminish me, to make me smaller. Instead, he'd set in motion a chain of events that made me, and others like me, more visible, more valued. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your opponent. It's about building something they said you couldn't build, and doing it so well that their absence becomes irrelevant. 1 year to the day after Brad interrupted my presentation, I stood in the same conference room, now addressing the entire technical leadership team, 15 directors and managers who reported to me as the newly promoted VP of Technical Operations. The promotion had come as a surprise, announced just a week earlier. James had been tapped to lead a new division, creating a vacancy that, according to the CEO, naturally fell to me to fill. My system had continued to outperform all projections. The team I'd built had expanded to 3 departments. My quiet reputation for technical excellence and fair leadership had spread throughout the company. Life had a strange symmetry sometimes. As we look ahead to next year's initiatives, I told the assembled leaders, I want to emphasize our core technical values: innovation based on merit, recognition distributed fairly, leadership that elevates rather than diminishes. Heads nodded around the table. Several of those present were people who had flourished under my direction after being overlooked before. Questions? I asked as I concluded. A new manager raised his hand, young, confident, with that particular brand of assurance that often comes from privilege. I've heard about the system that launched your rise here. Some people say it was built on ideas from previous leadership. A tense silence fell over the room. Everyone knew the history, though it was rarely mentioned openly anymore. I set down my presentation remote and met his gaze directly. What's your name? Mark Jennings. I transferred from the Seattle office last month. I smiled slightly. Welcome to Austin, Mark. Let me address your comment directly. Every line of code in that system, every architecture decision, every innovation was meticulously documented during development. The GitHub repository shows every contributor. The project documentation captures every design meeting. I opened my laptop and projected the repository history onto the screen. You see these commits? This timeline? This is what accountability looks like in technical development. Mark shifted uncomfortably. I didn't mean to imply. No implications needed, I interrupted smoothly. Facts speak for themselves. That's the beauty of our field, isn't it? The evidence is in the code. I closed my laptop. Let me be clear about something, Mark. At TechFlow, we don't trade in rumors or suggestions. We deal in documented reality. If you have questions about attribution, about who created what, I encourage you, demand you actually, to check the records. They're transparent for a reason. The room was silent. I let the moment stretch, then smiled. Any other questions about our technical roadmap? No hands went up. Good. Let's get to work. After the meeting, Priya, now a technical director herself, caught up with me in the hallway. That was masterful, she said quietly. Firm, but not aggressive. I've learned that the most effective responses are the ones backed by evidence. I glanced back at the conference room. Any idea where Mark got that idea? Rumor is he worked with Brad briefly in Seattle years ago. Probably heard his version of events. I see. I considered this. Keep an eye on him. Not to catch him doing anything wrong, just to make sure he has the support to succeed here on merit. Priya nodded. Will do. That evening, as I packed up to leave, I found a note on my desk. VP Martinez. I want to apologize for my question today. It was inappropriate and based on secondhand information I shouldn't have repeated. I've reviewed the project repository as you suggested. The attribution record is clear. I spoke out of turn and won't make that mistake again. Mark Jennings. I read it twice, then filed it away in my desk drawer, next to the thumb drive I still kept, just in case. Some fires extinguish themselves when exposed to enough light. 18 months after Brad's departure, I was in New York for TechFlow's annual leadership summit when I saw him. It was purely coincidental. I was having dinner with James and Catherine at a restaurant near the conference hotel when he walked in with a group of men in business suits. He didn't notice me at first. He looked different, heavier, with less of the cocky swagger I remembered. But the laugh was the same. Loud, designed to make everyone in the room aware of his presence. Catherine followed my gaze. Is that? Yes. I turned my attention back to my meal. Small world. James frowned. We can leave if you'd prefer. Why would we? We were here first. I took a sip of wine. Besides, I'm not the one who should feel uncomfortable. We continued our dinner, discussing the next day's presentations. I was scheduled to speak about our technical transformation, a case study that had generated significant industry attention. 20 minutes later, as we were ordering dessert, I felt someone approach our table. Sarah Martinez. I thought that was you. Brad stood there, drink in hand, smiling thinly. Brad? I nodded politely. This is a surprise. For me, too. He glanced at James and Catherine. James, good to see you again, and I don't believe we've met. Catherine Delgado, Ethics Committee. Her tone was glacial. Brad's smile faltered slightly. Ah, I see. An awkward silence. Brad broke it first. I heard about your promotion. Congratulations. VP now, is it? Yes. Quite a climb from analyst. I met his gaze steadily. Merit-based advancement. TechFlow values results. Indeed, they do. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm with Vertex Systems now, Director of Implementation. We're doing some interesting work with distributed architectures. Congratulations, I said neutrally. He lingered, seemingly wanting to say more. Finally, he raised his glass slightly. Well, good catching up. As he walked away, Catherine let out a breath. That was tense. Actually, I said, it wasn't. Not for me. And I realized as I said it that it was true. Seeing him again had produced none of the anxiety or anger I might have expected. James studied me. You really have moved past it, haven't you? Completely. I picked up the dessert menu. Now about that chocolate soufflé they're famous for. The next morning, I delivered my presentation to a packed conference. Room, standing ovation. Questions that demonstrated genuine interest in our technical approach. Business cards from industry leaders who wanted to discuss implementation details. As I was packing up my materials, a woman approached me. Ms. Martinez? I'm Elaine Chen, CTO at Vertex Systems, Brad's new company. Ms. Chen, a pleasure. Your presentation was impressive, particularly the architecture you designed for real-time transaction processing. It's elegant. Thank you. She hesitated. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but we're looking for a VP of architecture at Vertex. Your background would be perfect. Would you consider having a conversation about it? I couldn't help but smile at the irony. I'm very happy at TechFlow, but I'm flattered by your interest. Of course, but if you ever change your mind. She handed me her card. The door is open. That evening, back in my hotel room, I called my sister. Guess who offered me a job today? The CTO of Brad's new company. Mariana laughed. You're kidding. Did you tell her who you are? She knows exactly who I am. That's why she made the offer. What did Brad say when he found out? I smiled to myself. I have no idea, but I'd love to be a fly on that wall. Success, I had discovered, was the most satisfying form of justice. 2 years after that Friday in December, when Brad had publicly humiliated me, TechFlow announced its acquisition of Vertex Systems. The news came during our quarterly all-hands meeting. The CEO outlined the strategic benefits, the complementary technologies, the expanded market share. Standard corporate language for, we're absorbing a competitor. I sat in the executive row, listening with particular interest. The acquisition team had been secretive. Even leadership hadn't known all the details until recently. Integration planning begins next week, the CEO concluded. Sarah Martinez will lead the technical assessment team, evaluating their systems for compatibility with our architecture. After the meeting, I stopped by the CEO's office. About the Vertex assignment, I began carefully. I know, he said before I could continue. Brad Chambers works there, or did until yesterday. I raised an eyebrow. Yesterday? His position was eliminated in the preliminary restructuring. Standard procedure in acquisitions, redundant leadership roles are the first to go. I see. The CEO studied me. If you're uncomfortable with the assignment given your history, not at all, I interrupted. I was just surprised I wasn't briefed about Vertex personnel before the announcement. Deliberate decision. We wanted your technical assessment to be completely unbiased. Now that the acquisition is public, you'll receive full access to their organization charts, of course. I nodded. Thank you for your consideration, but it wouldn't have been an issue. And it wouldn't have. 2 years had transformed what once felt intensely personal into something distant, almost academic. Brad had become a footnote in my professional story, not the defining chapter I'd once feared. The following week, I flew to Seattle with my assessment team to begin reviewing Vertex's systems. Their headquarters occupied 3 floors of a downtown office building with views of Puget Sound. Elaine Chen, their CTO, soon to become TechFlow's Director of Research, greeted us in the lobby. Welcome to Vertex, Sarah. Your team has the conference room on 14 reserved all week. Thank you. Elaine, I'm looking forward to seeing what you've built here. As we rode the elevator, she mentioned casually, I should tell you that Brad Chambers' departure was less than amicable. There might be some tension among the technical staff who were loyal to him. Understandable. Acquisitions are always stressful. It's more than that, she said, lowering her voice. He told some people that TechFlow orchestrated the acquisition specifically to force him out, that it was personal. I kept my expression neutral. Corporate acquisitions are complex, strategic decisions involving hundreds of millions of dollars. They're never about individuals. Of course not. But some people believe what they want to believe. When the elevator doors opened, she added, just thought you should be prepared. The week passed in a blur of system reviews, architecture discussions, and integration planning. The Vertex team was talented and their technology impressive. Despite the rumored tension, our work progressed smoothly. On Thursday afternoon, I was alone in the conference room, reviewing notes, when someone knocked on the door. Come in, I called without looking up. Ms. Martinez? Do you have a minute? I glanced up to see a young developer standing nervously in the doorway. Of course. How can I help you? My name's Alex Warner. I worked directly under Brad Chambers. I gestured to a chair. Have a seat, Alex. He remained standing. I wanted to tell you something. Before the acquisition, Brad had us working on a distributed transaction system. He said it was his original design that TechFlow had stolen. I set down my pen. I see. But when your team presented your architecture yesterday, I realized his system was a poor imitation. The core concepts were similar, but the implementation was inefficient, flawed. He took a deep breath. He told us we were building something revolutionary, but we were just copying. Technology often evolves along parallel paths, I said carefully. Similar ideas emerge independently. Alex shook his head. Not this time. After he was let go, I found design documents on the shared drive, dated notes where he explicitly referenced Martinez's system and how to improve on it without triggering IP concerns. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket. It's all here. I looked at the flash drive but didn't take it. Why are you telling me this? Because I care about building good technology, and because he hesitated. Because he treated people badly here too, especially women engineers, and now I'm wondering if there's a pattern. I thought about all the people Brad had diminished over the years. The careers slowed, the confidence undermined, the ideas stolen. There was a pattern, I said quietly. But patterns can be broken, Alex. That's what documentation is for. I finally took the flash drive. Thank you for your integrity. The new organization will need engineers who value truth and attribution. After he left, I plugged in the drive and verified its contents. Then I encrypted a copy and emailed it to myself with a simple subject line: Archive, case closed. Some stories end not with dramatic confrontation, but with quiet vindication. The final piece of evidence I would never need to use. 3 years after that December meeting, I stood on a stage in Austin's Convention Center, delivering the keynote address at the Women in Tech Leadership Summit. The audience of 5 100 women, and some supportive men represented every level of the industry, from students to CEOs. Technical excellence isn't just about code or architecture, I told them. It's about creating environments where innovation can flourish, where attribution is accurate, where merit determines advancement. From the podium, I could see my team in the front row. Priya, now a VP herself, Lucia, heading user experience, Miguel, leading database architecture. My journey to CTO wasn't linear, I continued. There were obstacles, moments of doubt, instances where the systems designed to recognize talent failed. I paused, looking out at the sea of faces, women who had likely experienced their own versions of what I had endured. What I learned through that journey was simple but powerful. Documentation matters, not just for code, but for interactions, for attribution, for establishing patterns of behavior. The room was utterly silent now. When someone diminishes your contribution, document it. When someone takes credit for your work, document it. When someone tells you that you'll never prove your competence, document that too. I smiled slightly. And then prove them wrong with your excellence. After the keynote, during the networking reception, a young woman approached me. Ms. Martinez, your talk resonated deeply with me. I'm facing a situation at work, similar to what you described. My manager keeps taking credit for my ideas. I nodded. And you're documenting everything? Yes, but, she hesitated. Is it enough? Just keeping records? It feels so passive. It's not passive, I assured her. It's strategic patience. Building a case doesn't happen overnight. But when the moment comes to present your evidence, you'll be glad you have it. And that moment will come? It always does. The truth has a way of demanding to be heard. Your job is to be ready when that moment arrives. Later that evening, back in my office at TechFlow headquarters, I opened my desk drawer. The thumb drive was still there, though I hadn't accessed it in years. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand. Then I dropped it into the shredder beside my desk. I didn't need it anymore. Its purpose had been served, not by being used as a weapon, but by giving me the confidence to move forward, knowing I could protect myself, if necessary. The documentation had never been about revenge. It had been about reclaiming power, about ensuring that my voice couldn't be silenced, my contributions couldn't be stolen, my competence couldn't be questioned without consequence. My phone buzzed with a text from James, now CEO after the previous one's retirement. Board meeting went well. Your promotion to Chief Innovation Officer was unanimously approved. Announcement goes out tomorrow. Congratulations, Sarah. I smiled as I typed back. Thank you. Looking forward to the new challenge. Chief Innovation Officer, a newly created position that would have me reporting directly to the CEO, overseeing technical strategy across all divisions. I stood at my office window, looking out at the Austin skyline as twilight settled over the city. 3 years ago, in this same building, Brad Chambers had told me I would never prove my technical competence. He had been right, in a way. I hadn't needed to prove anything. I had simply built systems that worked, led teams that succeeded, created an environment where talent was recognized regardless of its source. And in doing so, I had transformed not just my own career, but the culture of an entire company. The most effective response to someone who tries to make you smaller isn't to tear them down. It's to grow so tall they become irrelevant. It's to build something so impressive that their opinion becomes a footnote in your success story. It's to create a paper trail so clear, so irrefutable, that the truth is impossible to deny. And sometimes it's to finally let go of the evidence you no longer need, because the case has already been decided in the court that matters most. The record of your achievements, written in impact rather than grievance. The legacy of your work, measured in lives changed rather than scores settled. The proof of your competence, demonstrated through creation rather than confrontation. I closed my laptop and turned off the lights. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new systems to build, and I was ready for all of it.